it is true. I mean, you know, that all the AP exams are stacked in that short time period. And when you get to that finish line, they should be rewarded. They shouldn't have to be taking a final exam when they put in that amount of work. And if they have good grades, I mean, obviously they have to have good grades in the class. But to me, that's like a gimme point. These points for having more kids taking AP exams, that's something easy. Incentivize them to take more exams, and then that score will come up. But mostly I want to do it because for the students' sake, it's a lot of anxiety that gets piled on them. And unfairly so.
I just want to point out, I have Sollerton's SPP score pulled up, which is a 90, and their percent of 3 or higher on advanced placement exam is a 90.47, and ours is 53%.
Yep, I saw that. I mean, you make an excellent point, and you know, based on your recommendations, we'll go back and look at that again.
Yeah, and I mean, really, I wasn't, when I brought it up, it wasn't for this score, it was for the students, because in May, they are so stressed with all the exams that they're taking, and if they are putting in the work, and you know, the answer I was given was that, well, we don't want them to take the exam, like some students then will sign up for the test and then they won't study or do well. But I think if you're taking an AP class, you know, give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to try and do well on the test. And I just think you'll get more, you know, just, there should be a reward or an incentive, or just common sense that taking, you know, 4 AP exams and 2 or 3 finals, and then some kids are taking SATs that same month, and then they have to take their SAT 2s in June, and maybe they took the ACTs in April. I mean, junior year is insane with all the tests that they're taking and the stress that they have.
Well, and I would say to the idea that they're not going to try hard on the AP exam, it's kind of silly, or that they won't study. The fact that they had good grades throughout the course in AP shows that they did, you know, that they were studying and they were conscientious. So to me, to say, well, how can we know if he's going to really study and prepare for that AP exam? You already know. He has been doing the work for the entire year, so that to me is a weak argument for not letting them get out of the final.
Honestly, I never heard that argument. It said to me, I thought the argument was, you know, we just expected them to do well in the course anyway. You know, averaging an A would be the expectation for the course in AP. I mean, I understand your argument, but I just want you to understand, I believe that the argument at the high school was, well, they would probably average into an A anyway, because they're taking these AP courses, that it wouldn't add stress because they would be averaging an A.
Okay, well, we just had that whole issue with the AP physics, so not everybody, I mean, you can't just say because obviously the kids who are taking AP courses are trying to challenge themselves, and they have different reasons. They might be challenging themselves because they love the material, they might be challenging themselves because they want to go to a better college. I mean, they have all different reasons for taking AP classes, but for some people it's a stretch, and some AP classes are much harder than others.
Sure.
I mean, based on my children's experience and as a teacher and hearing, you know, what the kids do, you know, in another school. So every AP class is different, and some are much, much more difficult than others. So I don't think you can say that if you're taking an AP class, you should be expected to have an A. Obviously, these are high-achieving, hardworking, motivated kids. Sure. So you can say that, but I don't think you can say that they all are going to be getting an A, and therefore that should be the standard to get out of it. I don't think we have to, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on the point, you know, I made my point. We need to think about the, you know, the mental health and the workload for the students. And then, wow, it also is bonus points for the school SPP score.
Yes, point very well taken. Thank you. Yeah, it would help. So we talked about what PBOS measures. It is a very complex metric, so I don't even begin to tell you that I understand it fully. But that's what it does. So again, if you look at the PBOS bio, you see dark blue. You want to see dark blue, right? That's the best that you can see. So I just kind of show you that and say why we keep meeting that. And we have a we have a wonderful curriculum, and it's been in place for a long time. You would expect that anyway. And then for our algebra, you see that red. So you see, we went from green to red. So we have a plan in place to address these issues. And then our literature, yellow to red. And we still, that probably is, we have to make sure that our students are literate before they leave us. So, we're dedicating a lot of time and discussion and planning for that. And now PBOS science, we have just been strong. And I really attribute that to the hard work of Joan Coleza and whoever worked with her early on, but we have a wonderful curriculum. It is clearly articulated in the classrooms. The assessments are all built in. I see us just continuing on this track. We have to pay attention to anybody who's in yellow to make sure that they're moving up, or anyone in the green, you don't slip. But all in all, we're doing very well. And then our ELA, you see that, right? So you see 4th and 5th grade in 2015. Well, I need to scoot this down a little bit. You see where things kind of go awry. Now what you can see, which is really very good, is from 15, 16, 17, the growth in 4th and 5th stayed the same, and they dropped in 6th and 7th grade. Across the board in 7th grade, those scores remain blue, and that's the discussions that we've been having. What is it that keeps us at blue when we dip so much in red? And that's yeah. So they're the discussions that we're having. They're the plans that we're making for improvement.
Can I ask you a question about that? Is that about, that's the growth, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
Is it because since we dip low, then when we make growth, we're getting blue because we're going from low to back up to where we were?
Blue is...
You know what I mean? So like 5th grade, you're blue, and then 6th grade, you're red, and then 7th grade, you're blue again. But you may be blue in 7th just because you went up from your red in 6th. So it doesn't mean we're necessarily doing great in 7th. It just means you made improvement from where you dipped down in 6th.
It doesn't work that way.
Is that not what it means?
Mm-mm. Nope. It works as group data at that year. So I'm a math teacher, and I had students, I'm talking PBOS now, I'm not talking about closing the achievement gap. I have a different group of kids in front of me this year. They're not the kids I was following from the following year. It doesn't work that way for PBOS. So now I have the kids in front of me who came to me blue. I could have had a group last year that came to me in green. I had to keep them in green. I would like to get them to light blue, but they're not the same students I have this year. So it's really the group that you have in front of you. So let me tell you,
you of this year were on here in blue last year because then you just go back a year, right? From 15 to 16 or 16 to 15.
They were meeting those growth standards, but they're not the same students. All students have a score, but PBOS doesn't measure. Teachers aren't measured on individual scores. They're measured on growth score from the group in front of them. So it really doesn't say that. It does say that when you're closing the achievement gap, but the PBOS scores are not individual scores. They're group scores of the students in front of you. And that is to say, I was able to meet or exceed these standards last year. You need to keep me here or move me higher. I know it's a hard concept, but. So what we're doing, I talked a lot about it, but what we're doing is we're spending the time on looking at, I think everybody, the administrators, the teachers, we had discussions with the teachers need to know 3-year rolling average. That means I've had these scores for 3 years. When you have a 3-year composite, that's part of your teacher evaluation. So when I have a 3-year, if I'm red, we need to talk about that. If I'm dark blue, I want to talk to you. What are you doing to be dark blue? Where another classroom across the hall isn't. These are discussions that we have and we are having now. It's like, teachers are concerned when they're not in blue, at least in green. When you talk to teachers, they want to be in blue. Why am I not in blue? I thought I was following A, B, and C. What do I need to do? So these are the discussions that administrators have been having with their teachers. And we have to. I mean, that, that's our job, and that's what we're doing. So we analyze it at a district level, the principals and the supervisors at the building level, and then the class lens with the teacher, and what do we do to support any teacher who needs that help? And part of what we're doing is really having teachers work with teachers. What strategies are you using to get those dark blue scores? Let's see what you're doing that I may not be doing. What do we know what best practices are? Oh, you're not differentiating. Are you covering all that curriculum? These are the questions that we are asking. To make sure, in systems that work really well, everybody is doing what they need to do, and we're all doing it together. So that's really what our efforts have been. So we outlined our areas of strength. For example, we are really good at text-based analysis. We are very good at that in one grade level, but not so much in another grade level, so that we know we need to work more on that, provide practice. So what happens at the building level is the building principal works with their staff, and they develop goals based on their data. So if they were really strong in ELA, they know they need to maintain that. What do you need to do to maintain that? But not so much in math, so they make that their building goal, and then everybody works collectively together. Or a writing goal, in some of the schools. So that's where we are. That's where the principals are. They've outlined what their goals should be. What Dr. Price and I and the supervisor are doing, we're meeting with them individually so that we know what the plans are, so that we can go back in and say, how are you doing with that? What kind of support do you need? What do you need at Sellersville, or West Rock Hill, or at the high school? Backwards. All right, so some of the things that are in place, we have a K-5 math intervention program, the number worlds. So number worlds are for your special education students and your students who aren't meeting the benchmarks right now. And I already talked about this, our 6th and 7th grade math line curriculum, 8th and algebra coming, K-5 writing program, and then the CDTs. So once science has their scores, but the other two departments will have their scores. Once they have that, that's when the differentiation for the high school is going to start for those tests, so that teachers have concrete evidence of where in skill development are we missing the mark for some students. And when we know that, what is the plan in the classroom? Strategies or resources for homework, for after school, all of those. All students, so they're included in that. We have benchmark data that we analyze, and that's where you keep track of where students are in terms of standards and skill development. The CDTs, and this last one, I don't know if this last one, hold on, we're getting there. Encouraging teachers to work with teachers is something that we strongly in. The teachers collaborate and help one another. So you're in classrooms. I mean, admit the high schools in classrooms more now than ever we have 6 through 12 supervisors, so they're in the middle school and the high school, and they get to see, hey, I've seen some really good, lessons here on a particular skill. Could you share that, and things of that nature. I think that's underestimated, and we certainly encourage it. So the high school systems approach. Identifying students based on projections and other factors to ensure proper scheduling into a co-taught class or other supported classrooms. So we need to make sure that we're putting the students who really do need that kind of support in the co-taught classrooms. But that's a whole nother discussion, because we don't have a Pupil Services Director right now, and as soon as we do, I think the curriculum department and the special ed department will work together. We've already started some meetings on what does co-teaching look like, what should it look like, what's the philosophy of that. So what we're looking at currently right now is to make sure that we have the right students and make sure we put the right students in those co-taught classrooms. And then when they're in the co-taught classrooms, what should be happening there? Creating remediation, personal and digital opportunities to help students meet the standards. We have that, we're one-to-one. They can do things on the computer. We can set them in strategic mode on certain programs to help them. They have to be aware of what I know and what I don't know to remediate. The other thing that we're talking about is eliminating the RSS, that reading skills and strategies course at the high school, and then replace with the itinerant support for literacy, so that the teacher who's taking this small group of students for reading skills and strategies, those students go back into the general ed English courses, then you take that expert teacher and you let her go in and provide itinerant support that she'll be able to help more students than just a small group in here. So these are the ideas that we've been discussing. How do we use the resources that we have better? So it's a matter of all the things that I discussed, and possibly, you know, we really do want to eliminate the RSS class. We really, that teacher in that class is an expert. She could be providing instruction to more, she could be a model for other teachers too. Okay, so they're pretty, no, we did go from 99 to 96% over those years, but we're still,
There's no title.
I'm sorry, it's up there, it doesn't,
It's graduation.
it's
Small
the,
word, yeah.
I know, it keeps going, I'm sorry. Ooh,
Where'd you go?
yeah. They were the cohort graduation rates, I'm sorry. They were big. So again, this was the AP. You can see the comparisons. We have more students taking AP courses, right? So you can see how many more that we did this year than we have over the other years. Well, obviously we have more students taking them, but not as many students scoring the 3 or more,
Yeah.
because we had more students taking the test. If you do the math, that's why it comes out to 90 and then the 80-some percent. I'm sorry. No, I'm okay. I'm okay. But I think we're on the right track here. We offered 3 more AP courses this year that we're in, and then we're recommending an AP course now for next year, so that's 4 more courses from that year. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We certainly will take under consideration your recommendation for the final to help us too. But yeah, we were pleased with our AP scores. Not all across the board. There were some areas, world language for one, that didn't score as high as maybe the social studies. This bio was strong, but not as strong past year. So those things, you know, we're aware of and making sure that we are addressing that. But overall, the scores were very, very good.
Dr. Shai.
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to, it's pretty small on the slide, but
Back.
we are, for our AP scores in Pennridge, compared to the state average, we're at 84.9% of our students with scores of a 3 or better, compared to the Pennsylvania average of 67%, and then the global of 60%. So I just wanted to point that out, that,
Thank you.
I mean, I'm pretty happy to see that, just.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I mean, you know, we're doing a lot of good things at the high school. And, you know, we're building the STEM courses and whatnot. We just have to take a step back and make sure that we are meeting those growth expectations. Our SAT scores were better, and I think that's a combination of students taking the SAT course and then PCEF having the fundraisers for SAT prep. And I think that, you know, we're seeing improve scores there. Even, in our SAT, our ACT scores, so we're pretty consistent with those. And then this, I'm really kind of ending it with where do our students go? This pretty much has followed a pattern, at least over the last 3 or 4 years. I just kind of wanted to break that out in terms of who goes into the workforce as opposed to the military, as opposed to 4- and 2-year colleges. And then we listed every school. I always think it's interesting to see where all the students go. And some of our students go to Ivy League schools, a lot of our students go to state schools, but there's a lot of different schools that they go to. It's really interesting. What I'd like to track, maybe after 1 more year of STEM, is to see if by offering those middle school STEM courses, and then what we're doing in high school, affects where students go to school to study STEM. Not just STEM, but it is, I'm personally curious about that. Like, to what effect will we have over time on students' careers? Because STEM jobs will be available to them, and that's one of the reasons why we offer that, is to make sure that we give them every advantage that we can. No, well, that's the end of the
I have a very brief question. Our graduation rate, how does that compare with the state?
It's higher. I don't know. I'll have to get you the exact
Okay,
figure.
I didn't find it in there.
Nope, okay, I'll get that for you.
But we're in the dark blue for that.
We're in the dark blue for that.
Okay.
Dark blue's good.
Okay.
So you want this, what, the state comparison, okay.
Do we have a specific plan for ELA at the middle level?
I wouldn't say it's specific. I think that's in the works now. I think Mr. Dupucki is behind, I don't know if you want to add anything to it, but we have the literacy leadership team working on particular curriculum and instruction, and Mr. Dupucki is meeting with those teachers by grade level. And 6th grade, again, we have some issues in 6th grade with the curriculum. You go elementary, some schools are K to 6, and everybody's on the same curriculum. Then you have 6, 7, 8, and like math really was kind of a hodgepodge of curriculum. I'm sure that's what it turned out to be, and now it's fully aligned. Mr. Dupucki is studying what 6th grade curriculum should look like. It's 6th grade kind of tricky. You're still elementary certified, so you're not really like a math certified teacher. So things kind of get tricky in 6th grade. So that's what we're looking at in 6th grade. Our 7th grade, we're also, for 7th grade, it's really the rigor is what we're looking at there, to increase the rigor in 7th grade and the writing. Because we want to produce better writers and technical writing too. So it's not just your narrative and storytelling, right? It's not just your informational, it's technical writing. So, they're the things that we're taking a look at the middle level. So I don't have a very specific plan, but I can tell you there will be one after all these meetings are complete.
Is it possible that some of the issue with 6th grade is because they're coming from a bunch of different elementary schools and is there a possibility that they're not all on the same page? So then when you combine them all together, you're needing to pull them from different directions, and maybe each school is doing things differently? Could that be impacting 6th, or do you think it's strictly a curriculum? Like, what do you think is the main driving factor in that 6th grade numbers?
The 5th grade curriculum and reading street couldn't be more standard across the elementary. It could not be. We're moving away from just doing that, but I don't think there's big differences if I went to Sellersville or I went to Dialer. Not in the LA. That is has been very, very consistent. So you see 5th grade students here, right? And for some reason, 6th grade, they don't maintain that, and that's a curriculum issue. So that's why we need to ensure that we have the standards aligned curriculum and it's articulated. So that's what we'll make recommendations after Mr. Dupucki is finished with his teams.
Other questions?
guess I mean, are we gonna revisit this at another meeting later in the year? I mean, because it's a lot of information, or just like, you know, what things have been implemented over the course of the year. I guess I would like to hear maybe in the spring. So,
I'd be happy to do that. Once we have all these, and I can do that, I can do that it makes sense by level since we're going to do it consistently, and I can provide you the updates of these plans that we're talking about. And you'll hear about some of them because they'll be program improvement proposals. But in terms of all the things that I talked about tonight, I'd be happy to do that.
yeah, I think it would be good too if we had it in the spring, and then in the fall, we talk about, then we'll have our new scores and talk about, you know, and it would just be more information and, yeah, and just, I mean, keeping the conversation going so that it's, right, it's not explaining everything, you know, like, okay, well, that was a year ago, like, it just will keep it fresher in people's minds.
Yes, it's a wonderful idea, and I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Anything else?
For just general comments.
Yes.
I do want to say just a little bit about the STEM program. I was over at Central Middle School hosted the Veterans Ceremony this year. They rotate through the different school districts. So it was at Central on Friday. And after the very nice ceremony that we had for the veterans, they all went into the library for a luncheon that was prepared for them. And while they were having their lunch, Mr. Tim Chapman had some of our students come in and present to the veterans that were in attendance their different STEM projects. And they were lit on fire. Everybody is so excited about the STEM program over in those middle schools. And if you haven't visited one, you need to go visit it because it's like a hive. There's so much activity going on there. Everybody, I've talked to parents, teachers, students, a veteran that I walked out with to his, you know, we were leaving together sort of. I pointed out the STEM room and he was just so excited about it. So it's really been spectacular. I just wanted to say thank you because everybody's in love with it. My own son, when the pediatrician asked him this afternoon, what's your favorite class at school? STEM. So I just wanted to let you know that because I was very excited, and I'm glad that Mr. Tenchat took advantage of that opportunity to let the community see what was implemented in our schools. A lot of people got to see it, and they were all very pleased with it.
Mrs. Cohen, thank you for sharing that. Mr. Tenchat, all the principals are like beyond happy for what they see because the students are so excited. I mean, it is great, and I'm going to take Mrs. Miller there because she wants to go, and anyone else who would like to see that. And I know we have new school board members.
I've been waiting, Dr. Shaw.
I tried. I will call you, and we'll go. Because when I visit them, it's not just the students, the teachers. You know, talk to Ryan Runkle, talk to Steve Smith. They can't get enough of it. And yeah, so thank you for pointing that out. I really do think it's a difference maker. And I do want to add one more thing. That exploratory language at the middle level, phenomenal. I'm in these classrooms. I was in a French class, I guess it was last week, and I can't believe they don't get that for very long. It's a 30-day period. They're speaking in French. They're talking to each other. And the students love it. So I did want to share that the exploratory language is going very well too. So thank you.
All right. That completes the agenda, so we will now move to public comment. Mrs. Herrick.
Good evening, Diane Herring, Hilltown Township. I hope you'll give me more than 3 minutes because it was a lot of information up there from what I could grasp. First off, Mrs. Jordan, I cannot say in any more words than you did how critical the removal of the final exam for AP classes is. It is an absolute, I cannot begin to enunciate the stress that it puts on kids. And these are kids, I was a bit angry when someone would suggest that the kid had to get an A. You're talking about 11th graders who are taking college-level classes, and if they're pulling a B with the workload, as Ms. Cullen points out, starts in June and July in some of these classes, it's horrible what happens at the end of the year in junior year. And to simply think that they're not gonna, stay with it, I mean, these are kids who commit up front to hours and hours of work. I really would like to see that we don't talk about things. I'd like to see us do something about that, especially considering that you have the program of studies guide due out in a month and a half. I don't think you have the option to wait. I think that needs to be and should be communicated to the students in a timely manner, not just talked about. The comment was made tonight about data and how you use it. I saw the test scores, or the AYP, SPP, whatever you want to call it. I did a little math on my own, and I got handouts, if anybody wants them. Because I don't look at year over year, I look for a trend. And I pulled the trends, and not once tonight did we talk about a % of change in that number. We talked about a minus 0.7 from this year to last year. In the high school, in the last 4 years, we've dropped 20.23%. That's the difference between a 93.9 and a 74.9. Yes, it's data and how you use it. But if you're going to operate in a bubble and you're only going to do 1 year, you're not helping your cause. Because the real world doesn't work like that. Okay? And I'm sorry, but when you have a middle school and you roll a number up like that, that's misrepresentative. You put a number up there in the 60s. You average your middle schools. You have a middle school who pulled a 54.2 on their score. They don't get blue, they got red. And that's misrepresentative. That's not being honest. Because if you're not explaining to parents where the highs are as much as where the lows are, then they can't help. You're never going to get everything you want in remediation done with just a teacher. You need parent support. You need parents to put a value in that. You're not going to get their support when you roll it up like that. I mean, Central Middle School in the last 4 years has lost 32.59%, from a 94.8 down to 63.9. Can someone please tell me how we let this go on for 4 years in this death spiral? I mean, at what point does somebody stop and say, enough already with the falling scores? I heard nothing tonight. Nothing quantitative about what you're doing in a high school. What I did hear, however, is that your 8th graders are going to miss the mark again, because they're not getting that extra math this year. So by the time they hit the high school, they'll be back again with falling through the gap. That's all I heard tonight. We're not keeping up with the kids who meet the gap. We're not catching the ones who are falling through. And we're not keeping the ones who started out doing well up there. And I didn't hear one thing tonight. One substantive thing tonight about what you're doing to help the kids in high school. You have the least amount of time left to change their world. I will say, however, thank you, Mr. Shaplicki. Somebody who understands that it's senior year, maybe not every kid is going to walk into college. And maybe you need to do something about that. I'm still waiting for the day that this district decides in high school to give kids a real life skills class. How to balance a checkbook. How to sign up for car insurance. Because these are real things. And they're not being taught. And some of these kids need a teacher to teach them because they don't get that at home. Comment on your APs, because I find it very disconcerting. I have listened to this district. You talk about the cost of an AP exam as a deterrent, and that other schools pay for them. Not once has anyone ever said in a meeting, how many of those kids who sit through the AP class all year long don't take the test because of financial need? What number are we really talking about? You can sit here and discuss paying $15,000 for a speaker to come talk to the teachers. Can't tell me what they're going to talk about, how long they're going to talk about, but you want 15 grand to do that. How many kids are sitting in an AP class who don't take an AP exam because mom and dad don't have $93? Because see, that cost did go up significantly in the last year, I might add. But no one ever actually does anything about it. No one ever actually talks about the math. How many kids are we really talking about? We can blow it on a turf, but we can't give the kids who fight for their academics the shot at the test. Something's very screwed up here. One final note. If you want to talk about success and remediation, there was one thing clearly missing from this evening's presentation. You started a remediation class 2 years ago for biology to help the kids who weren't passing the biology keystone. You created transitional science. There was no graph up there tonight on how many kids were in it 2 years ago in that class, how many kids were in it last year, what's the success rate, have we decreased it? You want to know why you're missing your gap? Because you're not looking at what you really should be looking at, and you're not being told about what you really should be. Because that's where your number is. How many kids are now in transitional science that weren't? Did that number go up? Did that number go down? The kids who got in transitional science, did they pass the biology keystone the second time around? Were we successful? Or were we not? So yeah, it is about data and numbers, but it's about picking the numbers that you need to look at. And rolling things up like that tonight, that's not how you solve problems. Because it really doesn't clearly enunciate what your problems really are. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. Furlong.
Sue Furlong, West Rockville Township. As everybody here knows, I was a board member, and at the time I was on the board, this committee was called Academic Performance. And as soon as a number of us got off the board, it was promptly changed back to curriculum. And I think that's sad that the name, in my opinion, became less of a description of what the expectations were. That this committee would look at performance, not just activity. The score 4 years ago for this district overall, that great big 79 or 74.9 that you saw, was in the 90s. Now, there's been a couple of hits because of changes in the rigor of the PSSA tests, and almost every district, in fact, I think every district dropped in their score. But after about a year of adjustments, they turned the corner and their scores started going back up. They're not as high as they originally were, but they turned the corner and they're going back up. I heard a lot tonight about, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We have to look at this and we have to look at that. We're in our fourth year of a drop. The buck has to stop somewhere. And I know I don't have 4 years at my job to get it right and then start planning how to get it right. Okay? I believe that 4 years of a continued downward trend is at least 2 years too late, and that somebody needs to be accountable. The plans I heard tonight are planning this, planning that, which means for this year, we're still in a planning stage on a 4-year problem. I don't find that acceptable at all. And I feel sorry for the kids that have endured this 5-year slide. That's not fair to them. This plug should have been pulled 2 years ago. Somebody needs to be accountable for the lack of performance in academics. Call it curriculum, call it academic performance, call it what you want. I'm telling you, it went from 94 with a drop in 19 points in 4 years. And there hasn't been any change during those 4 years of administration. There needs to be accountability for that kind of lack of performance. It's sad, especially when you compare us to other districts.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Not, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming.